إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Inshallah ta'ala, in this sit, I want to bi'idhnillah al-kareem, with the permission of Allah, I want to speak about a very important topic. A topic in which I found and I find that talabatul ilm, students of knowledge, al-amma, the general mass, have come to confusion and misunderstanding regarding. And that issue is al-hukmu bighayri ma anzal Allah, ruling by other than that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down. The mistake and the errors that have come regarding students of knowledge was not only uniquely to the students of knowledge, but rather al-fudala, praiseworthy individuals, have also not been safe from falling into that mistake. So inshallah ta'ala, in this sit, bi'idhnillah al-kareem, I hope to summarize that topic in a very summarized, abridged manner, trying to bi'idhnillah al-kareem bring the matter with adillah, evidences from the kitab and the sunnah and the ijma' bi'idhnillah al-kareem. I ask from every individual who is listening to bring your ears close and trying to understand the points that I'm inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving. As Ubadah ibn Samit alayhi rahmatullah said, as Ubadah ibn Samit said radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, inna ala al-haqqi nura, the haqq has light. The haqq is light. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala said, ألا لا يقلدن أحدكم دينه رجلا, that one of you should not blind follow your religion an individual. In amana amana, if he believes you believe, wa in kafara kafara, and if he disbelieves you disbelieve. Don't make your religion something you just blind follow. If a person believes, you believe with him, and if he disbelieves, you disbelieve with him. فَإِن كُنْتَ لَا بُدَّ, but if you have to follow مُقْتَدِينَ فَبِالْمَيِّتِ, follow the dead ones. فَإِنَّ الْحَيَّ لَا يُؤْمَنْ عَلَيْهِ الْفِتْنَةِ, because the one who is alive, fitna cannot be, he cannot be safe from it. So follow the Sahabas alayhi rahmatullah, to follow them in that which they have said. So inshallah ta'ala, I want to bring to your attention inshallah ta'ala the kitab and the sunnah and the ijma' of the salaf of this ummah, and how the ulama al-rasikhun, the rooted and grounded scholars, have understood this issue, al-hukmu bighayri ma anzal Allah. I want to also remind you all that do not come with fanaticalism. Don't be a person who, if he hears a matter which goes against what you believe, don't be very hard-headed, and don't have that characteristics of being a fanatical individual. Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash rahimahullah, he said, when he was asked, Man is Sunni, who is the person of the Sunnah? He said, Alladhi idha dhukirta, the one if you mention to him al-ahwa, if you mention to him desires and innovation, lam yata'assab li shay'in minha, he does not become fanatical to any of it. He doesn't have any form of character which he becomes fanatical to that view in any of those innovations that you've mentioned. Abu al-Abbas al-Asam rahimahullah, he done tawaf around, he mentioned, قال Abu al-Abbas al-Asam rahimahullah, he said, one day two Kharijis, they done tawaf around the Kaaba. One of the Kharijis said to the other Khariji, لا يدخل الجنة, no one will enter Jannah, من هذا الخلق, from all of these creations here, غيري وغيرك, other than me and you, except me and you. No one in this haram is going to enter Jannah who's doing tawaf except me and you. The other one said, who's a bit smarter, he said, جنة, a Jannah, عرضها السماوات والأرض, a Jannah which it is width and its height is as big as the heavens and the earth. لا يدخل بنيت لي ولك, and it was only made for me and you. قال نعم, he said yes. And then the other smart Khariji said to him, Hiya laka. That Jannah, let it be for you. وَتَرَكَ رَأْيَهُ. And he left his view. Meaning what type of even a aql, a logic cannot take. Na'am. So inshallah ta'ala that was an introduction. Bi-idhnillah al-kareem, my aim to go in this topic is as follows. I will do it in four. Bi-idhnillah al-kareem, I will do it in four chapters. Four chapters that I'm going to tackle inshallah, in order for us to come with this topic in a very, very summarized and also not missing the important points. The first one inshallah ta'ala is قواعد لا بد من معرفتها. Principles which the individual has to know. That's the first one. The second one is التفصيل في مسألة الحكم بغير ما أنزل الله. I'm going to explain and make detailed explanation on the matters pertaining to ruling by other than that which Allah has sent down. 2. Number 3, فصول مهمة, units which are important. 4, الجواب, answers, and أهم أدلة المخالفين, answering the most important evidences of the opposite view, the opposite individuals, our opponents. The evidences that they brought, answers to it. The first point from the 4, the first one, was what? قواعد, principles, لا بد من معرفتها, in which we have to know. The first point, which is the first chapter, I'm going to, inshallah ta'ala, explain it with 6 principles. The first chapter was what? قواعد, principles, لا بد من معرفتها, in which you have to know. Okay? The first principle for that, the first قاعدة, is that الحكم بغير ما أنزل الله فرض عين على كل مسلم. That ruling by what Allah has sent down is an obligation on every individual. And I'm going to give 6 evidences to prove that. 1 is Allah made it obligatory on the legislation to be done. Point number 1 indicates that it's obligatory on each and every one of us to rule by that which Allah has sent down. Allah says, وَأَنِحْكُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ وَاحْذَرْهُمْ أَنْ يَفْتِنُوكَ عَنْ بَعْضِ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ فَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَنْ يُصِيبَهُمْ بِبَعْضِ ذُنُوبِهِمْ وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ لَفَاسِقُونَ. Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 49. The second evidence is Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala obligated on us التحاكم إلى شرع الله, that we run to Allah's legislations and that we have الرضا, we are pleased with it, and that we don't have any form of enmity to it. والتسليم, and what we submit to it. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He said, فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم حرجا مما قضيت ويسلموا تسليما. Surah An-Nisa, ayah 65. The third is al-wa'idu, the serious, severe warning لمن لم يحكم بشرع الله تعالى. Severe warning to the individual who does not rule by that which Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala legislated. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 44. وقال تعالى, Allah also said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 45. وقال تعالى, Allah also said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 47. The fourth is al-hadar, to be cautious of what? من مخالفة أمر الله, to oppose the order of Allah. ورسوله, and His Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال تعالى, Allah said, فليحذر الذين يخالفون عن أمره أن تصيبهم فتنة أو يصيبهم عذاب أليم. Surah An-Nur, ayah 63. The fifth is حكم الله تبارك وتعالى. Allah's legislation is what? أحسن الأحكام, the best of legislations. قال تعالى, Allah says, أفحكم الجاهلية يبغون ومن أحسن من الله حكما لقوم يوقنون. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayah 50. The sixth one is ما جاء من أحكام الشريعة, that which has come regarding the rules of the legislation. من عند الله, from Allah, is what? فهو روح ونور. It's a soul and it's a light. The legislation that came from Allah is a soul and it's also a light. قال تعالى, Allah says, وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا وإنك لتهدي إلى صراط مستقيم. Surah Ash-Shura, Ayah 52. Those 6 points is a proof for the first principle that I wanted you all to understand, which is that the legislation is for Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and that only Allah should be the one whose law should be taken into consideration, and that it's obligation on every single person. The second principle that I want everybody to leave with is what? وقوع المرء, for a person to fall into a matter which is kufr, في شيء من المكفرات, for a person to fall in a matter, or a person fell into a matter which is disbelief, لا يلزم, it doesn't necessitate, because he fell into it, لا يلزم منه كفره, it doesn't necessitate that he becomes a kafir just because he fell into a kufr. This principle is very important that you understand it, which is what? When you want to place a ruling on a particular individual, you need 4 things to be found before you place that ruling on that individual. This is called takfirul muayyan, placing that individual ruling on that person. 4 matters have to be found first. When those 4 matters are found, after that then the ruling is put on the person. The first one is al-ilm, that the person has knowledge of the ruling of that particular matter. He knows that this ruling in the Sharia prohibits it. He knows it. Number 2, so he has knowledge of it. A person took Islam, he comes to you and there's a Christian sign on. He has to know that the Christian sign is not allowed. You can't wear it, he has to have the knowledge. So, knowledge is needed. What is the evidence for that? Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He said, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala said that. The second one is what? So he has to have knowledge. That knowledge, al-ilmu, knowledge. Al-munafi lil-jahl, that negates ignorance. Number 2, al-qasd. Al-qasd means what? He willingly intends to do this, and that it was not an error, a mistake that occurred from him. So it has to be al-qasd. He has to willingly intend. That negates what? It negates error. He has to have not done it by accident. If he did it by accident, such as a person who stands on the mushaf by accident, he's not a kafir. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَجَاوَزَ عَنْ أُمَّتِي الْخَطَأ وَالنِّسْيَانِ وَمَا اسْتُكْرِهَ عَلَيْهِ. Allah has forgiven, uplifted from my nation. For what? Al-khata, mistake in which they do. If my nation do a mistake, they are forgiven from it. So that's the second one. He done it by accident. It wasn't willingly. He didn't choose to do it. That is the evidence for that one. The third one is al-ikhtiyar. He chose it. He willingly chose it. The second one was, willingly intended it. The second one was willingly intended it, The third one was, he willingly chose to do it. Meaning, he was not obliged to do it. He wasn't obliged to do it. It wasn't made compulsory on him to do it. He wasn't forced into it. That he willingly chose to do it from his own will. Why? Where's the evidence for that? Allah says, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. Allah gave an exception, that the person who is forced into something that he's not held against it. He's not held account for it. And also the hadith that I mentioned before, which is إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَجَاوَزَ عَنْ أُمَّتِي الْخَطَأُ وَالنِّسْيَانُ وَمَا اسْتُكْرِهَ عَلَيْهِ is evidence for it. Which is اسْتُكْرِهَ عَلَيْهِ, that is not forced to do it. The fourth one is what? عَدَمِ التَّأْوِيلِ السَّائِغِ. The person should not have a permitted interpretation. He should not have it. The evidence for that is that evidence which is interpretation which is permitted is what the companions who drank the alcohol did. Like Uthman ibn Mad'un. They drank an alcohol. Uthman ibn Mad'un, what he did was, he drank alcohol. Uthman alayhi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu heard they drank alcohol. And not only did they drink it, but they made it halal for themselves. They made it halal for themselves. When Umar heard it, making halal for yourself a matter which Allah prohibited, a person becomes a kafir because of it. But these companions did not. Why? Because they had an interpretation. What was the interpretation? They took the verse of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, لَيْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ جُنَاحٌ فِي مَا طَعِمُوا إِذَا مَا اتَّقَوْا. That it is no problem a person who had come with piety whatever he eats. So they misunderstood that verse. And so they thought that if piety is present in us, it doesn't matter what we eat. But they didn't know that the ayah, it came down on a people it came down on a people before the legislation was made. Before the legislation of khamr bin haram was made. And they used to drink. And then the companions then said, Ya Rasulullah, where are those of our friends who died before the khamr was made haram? Are they going to go to the hellfire? This verse came down to say, because they died upon piety, it is not a problem what they ate, because they were before the ruling. But that wasn't referring to a person who saw the ruling. So these Sahabas misunderstood the verse. When Umar, they told their reason, he did not do takfir on them. He heard the interpretation, he said, okay, and the kufr was not placed on them. So that is a matter you have to understand. Those four were what? Al-ilmu al-munafi lil-jahl. Knowledge that negates ignorance has to be present. They have to have knowledge. 2, al-qasd. They have to be willingly choosing. They have to be willingly intending this action, and it can't be a what? It can't be by accident, an error. 3, that they willingly chose it. They chose it, and it can't be something which they were forced on. And 4th one is that عدم التأويل السائغ, that they don't have a permitted interpretation. Ibn Taymiyyah alayhi rahmatullah, he said regarding that points that I mentioned, he said وَلَيْسَ لِأَحَدٍ, it is not permissible for anybody أن يكفر أحد من المسلمين, to place takfir on an individual from the Muslims, وإن أخطأ, even if the person does a mistake, وغلط, and he comes with shortcomings, he does something wrong, you're not allowed to make takfir of him. Until what? حتى تقام عليه الحجة, until you establish the proof on him, or the proof is established on him. وتبين له المحجة, and the thing that he has done wrong is clarified that this is wrong, and the proof is placed on him. You see, وَمَنْ ثَبَتَ إِسْلَامُهُ, anybody whose Islam has been affirmed, بِيَقِينٍ, with certainty, لَمْ يَزُلْ ذَلِكَ عَنْهُ, it cannot be removed from him, بِشَكٍ, with doubt. بَلْ لَا يَزُولُ, rather it can't be removed, إِلَّا بَعْدَ إِقَامَةِ الْحُجَّةِ, until the proof is established, وَإِزَالَةِ الشُّبْهَةِ, and the doubt is removed. So here what we learn is that nobody can place takfir on a person individually unless he has those 4 intact. Let's move on to the 3rd principle, inshallah ta'ala, which is kufrul hakim, make a kafir, a ruler becoming a kafir, la yalzamu, does not necessitate, minhu khuruj and alayhi, it does not necessitate to go against him. If a ruler falls in kufr, okay, it doesn't necessitate, just because he fell into kufr, that we go against him straight away. Doesn't necessitate it. straight away. Rather, first of all, we have to do 5 things. 1, we have to verify that what he fell into is kufr al-bawah, clear-cut kufr. الذي عندنا من الله فيه برهان, in which we have an evidence with Allah the day of judgment. 2, إقامة الحجة عليه, we have to establish the proof on him. 3, القدرة على إزالته, that we are able to remove him. 4, القدرة على تنصيب مسلم مكانه, that we are able to place a Muslim in his place. 5, ألا يترتب على هذا الخروج مفسدة على المسلمين أعظم من مفسدة بقائه, that there is not going to come a greater evil for the Muslims than the present problem that's there already. By them going against him, a greater problem will not occur than the current problem that stands, which is the fact that he's ruling over the Muslims. Ibn Taymiyyah said, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, anybody who's from the believers, بِأَرْضٍ, he is in a land, هُوَ فِيهَا مُسْتَضْعَفٌ, you're weak in that land, that Muslim is weak in the land. أو في وقت, or there's a time, هُوَ فِيهَا مُسْتَضْعَفٌ, or there's a time when the Muslims are weak. فَلْيَعْمَلْ, the Muslims need to implement what? بِآيَةِ الصَّبْرِ, the verses of patience. وَالصَّفْحِ, and the verses of forgiving. عَمَّنْ يُؤْذِي اللَّهَ, on the person who is harming Allah and His Messenger. الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ, from the people who are given the books. وَالْمُشْرِكِينَ, and the pagans and the polytheists. وَأَمَّا أَهْلُ الْقُوَّةِ, as for the people of strength. فَإِنَّهُمْ يَعْمَلُونَ, they are going to act upon the verses of what? بِآيَةِ قِتَالِ, the verses of fighting. Fighting who? أئمة الكفر, the leaders of disbelief. الذين يطعنون في الدين, those who are criticizing the religion. وبآية قتال الذين, and also the verses of fighting the ones الذين أوتوا الكتاب, the ones who have been given the book, حتى يعطوا الجزية, until they give jizya to the Muslims, عن يد, whilst they are what? Whilst they are in a state of humiliation. عن يد وهم صاغرون. So Ibn Taymiyyah told us, explains here, that the Muslims are 2 types. أهل ضعف, people of weakness, and أهل قوة, and people of strength. The people of أهل ضعف, who are weak, either at a land or a time, doesn't matter. He said they act upon ayatul sabr, verses of patience. And they, even if that person's harming Allah and His Messenger, the verses sabr, ألم تر إلى الذين قيل لهم كفوا أيديكم وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة, they act upon those verses. As for the other ones, people of strength, they implement the verses that are talking about what? The verses which are talking about fight and etc. Na'am. Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, alayhi rahmatullah, he spoke about the matter which I mentioned before, which is izalatil munkar, removing a munkar bima huwa ankaru minhu, with something that is even greater. You're trying to stop an evil, and you're trying to stop that evil with a greater evil. Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, he said, alayhi rahmatullah, he said, إِلَّا إِذَا رَأَوِ الْمُسْلِمُونَ كُفْرًا بَوَاحًا. First one is, unless the believers, they see in their ruler a clear-cut kufr. The kufr has to be clear-cut. مِنَ اللَّهِ فِيهِ بُرْهَانٍ, that they have a evidence from Allah with it. It's not a issue which you saw on YouTube or you saw on Instagram and somebody sent you the picture and etc. No, that's not clear-cut kufr. That could be photoshopped. It has to be clear-cut kufr, in which you have a hujjah against Allah. فِيهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ and فِيهِ بُرْهَانٍ. There is a proof for you the day of judgment. فَلَا بَأْسَ, at that time, there's no problem أَن يَخْرُجُوا عَلَى هَذَا السُّلْطَانِ, for the people to go against that ruler, لِإِزَالَتِ, to remove him. إِذَا كَانَ, but that is if it's with them, عِنْدَهُمْ قُدْرَةً, they have the ability. أَمَّا إِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ عِنْدَهُمْ قُدْرَةً, but if they don't have the ability, فَلَا يَخْرُجُوا, they should not go. أو كان الخروج, or if they're leaving and going against him, would do what? يُسَبِّبُ شَرًّا أَكْثَرَ, it will necessitate a greater evil. فَلَيْسَ لَهُمُ الْخُرُوجِ, at this time, they're not allowed to go against him. رِعَايَةً لِلْمَصَالِحِ الْعَامَّةِ, because they are observing the general, the greater good. وَالْقَاعِدَةُ الشَّرْعِيَّةُ الْمُجْمَعِ عَلَيْهَا, and the principle in the Sharia which is unanimously agreed upon is what? لَا يَجُوزُ إِزَالَةِ الشَّرِّ بِمَا هُوَ أَشَرُّ مِنْهُ. it is not permissible to remove an evil with an evil greater than that evil. بل يجب rather, it is what? درء الشر, to remove the evil بما يزيله, with something that is going to remove it for good. You want to remove an evil, you want to stop an evil. To stop that evil, you have to make sure that you're either going to remove it by making sure that all of it's going to go, or you're going to lessen it. You're going to lessen it. أما درء الشر, as for trying to remove and repel a harm with what? بشر, with another harm, أكثر, which is greater, فلا يجوز, it is not permissible, بإجماع المسلمين, with the consensus of the Muslims. So the ruler, going against him is always a mafsada. He's not going to easily give up, so he's going to fight, blood is going to shed, honors are going to go, women are going to be raped, and etc. So we have to know that this harm of the fasad that's going to happen is less, it's less than the current fasad that's already there, which is him staying in his position as a kafir ruling over the Muslims. Okay? Who is the one who determines the maslahah and the mafsada here? The ulama, the scholars who are rooted and grounded with their understanding. Na'am. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen also said the same, but due to the short time, we won't mention it. Ibn Qayyim in his kitab I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in, he said the same. He said, إن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم شرع لأمته إيجاب إنكار المنكر ليحصل بإنكاره من المعروف ما يحبه الله ورسوله، فإذا كان إنكار المنكر يستلزم ما هو أنكر منه وأبغض إلى الله ورسوله فإنه لا يسوغ إنكاره، وإن كان الله يبغضه ويمقت أهله، وهذا كالإنكار على الملوك والولاة بالخروج عليهم، فإنه أساس كل شر وفتنة إلى آخر الدهر. Ibn al-Qayyim mentions that Allah legislated the ummah to prevent the evil, so لِيَحْصُلَ بِإِنْكَارِهِ, because whilst you're trying to stop the evil, what is going to come is a good that's going to come. Then he said, because Allah loves the good to happen. فَإِذَا كَانَ, but if إِنْكَارُ الْمُنْكَرِ, if you stopping this evil, يَسْتَلْزِمُ, it will necessitate بِمَا هُوَ أَنْكَرُ مِنْهُ, a greater evil that's going to come out of it, a greater problem. وَأَبْغَضُ, and he said, this becomes anger, it becomes something in which Allah and His Messenger dislike. فإنه لا يسوغ إنكاره وإن كان الله يبغضه ويمقت أهله. نعم. The fourth principle, inshallah ta'ala, is al-aslu fil a'mal. The original essence of actions is what? Is which oppose the sharia. Al-mukhalifatu lil-shara. Every action that goes against the sharia, the original essence of it is what? عدم التكفير, that we don't make takfir of the people regarding it. We don't. والتكفير طارئ, and that the takfir is an additional thing. على هذا الأصل, on that original essence, which is ناقل عنه. Pay attention, I'll explain it better. The original essence of every action or every speech that goes against the sharia is that it's a sin, minor or major, doesn't matter. For you to say that now it becomes kufr akbar, you have taken it out of its original essence, the asl, which was what? أنه ذنب, it's a ma'siyah, it's a sin. You've made it something additional, which is kufr. You have to provide a evidence in order for you to take the person out of the religion regarding this matter, or to say that this matter is kufr akbar. The kufr akbar requires an evidence. So the principle is al-aslu, the original essence, fil a'mal, in actions, whether they are actions of speech or actions of the limbs, al-mukhalifa, that opposes lish-shara', that is opposition to the sharia, adamu takfir, is to not make takfir on it. What takfiru, and the takfir is what? طارئ, it's an additional thing. على هذا الأصل, on the original essence. What is the evidence for that? What is the evidence for that? It's the consent in which I told you that I will provide you with, inshallah ta'ala. Ibn Abdul Barr said, he said, وَمِنْ جَهَةِ النَّظَرِ الصَّحِيحِ الَّذِي لَا مَدْفَعَ لَهُ أن كل من ثبت له عقد الإسلام في وقت بإجماع المسلمين من المسلمين ثم أذنب ذنبا أو تأول تأويلا فاختلفوا بعد في خروجه من الإسلام لم يكن لاختلافهم بعد إجماعهم معنى يوجب الحجة ولا يخرج من الإسلام المتفق عليه إلا باتفاق آخر أو سنة ثابتة لا معارض لها. Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he said, ومن جهة النظر الصحيح, from the angle of observation which is correct, الذي لا مدفع له, in which nobody is able to push away, and is أن كل من ثبت له عقد الإسلام, is that any person who Islam has been affirmed for him, meaning he had Islam, في وقت, at a time, بإجماع من المسلمين, with the consent of the Muslims, meaning everyone was referring to him as a Muslim, everyone saw him as a Muslim. He had the rights of Islam. There was a time he had it. ثم أذنب ذنبا, then this person done a sin. He done a crime in the religion. أو تأول تأويلا, or he interpreted something for himself. فاختلفوا, then they disputed regarding this action in which he has done, or this interpretation in which he has come with. Is it kufr or is it not? فاختلفوا بعد, after that they disputed في خروجه من الإسلام. Is this person, should he be taken out of Islam? لم يكن, Ibn Abdul Barr said, because there was a ijma' that was present, a certainty of him being a Muslim, it was present at a time. This doubt that came later has no basis whatsoever. لم يكن لاختلافهم, this dispute of theirs has no basis بعد اجتماعهم, بعد إجماعهم, after their agreement. معنى يوجب حجة, it has no meaning in which a proof can be taken from it. Pay attention. ولا يخرج من الإسلام, and the person does not leave Islam. المتفق عليه, the Islam that was agreed upon, إلا باتفاق آخر, unless the kufr is also agreed upon. So the Islam was agreed upon, the kufr has to be also agreed upon. Or sunnah, or a hadith comes, and what does it do? It makes takfir of this individual. Then this is أو سنة ثابتة لا معارض لها, which has nothing goes against it. So from this, what do we learn? That any individual who comes with Islam, to take him out of Islam has to be a matter which is not muhtamal. It can't have maybe, maybe not. It can't be a doubtful or anything that is open for interpretation. It can't be. It has to be something clear cut. It has to be an ijma' and ittifaq, or it has to be a sunnatun thabita. It has to be a evidence from the kitab and the sunnah. And that's something we all apply in our fiqh matter. For instance, a person had tahara. And he doubted whether his tahara is present. He said, did I lose my tahara? Did I lose my tahara? Which I know I had, but I don't know whether I lost it. We ask him, are you 100% sure that you done wudu? He said, I'm 100% sure I done wudu. We ask him, are you 100% sure that you broke it? He says, no, I'm not 100% sure. We will say, stick with what you're 100% sure and leave off what you're not 100% sure. Stick to the certainty and leave off the doubt. Because the qa'idah is al-yaqeen, certainty, لا يزال بشك, أما لا يزول بشك. Yaqeen cannot be removed with doubt. Certainty cannot be removed with doubt. Ibn al-Mundhir, he said, إذا تطهر الرجل, if an individual purifies himself, فهو على طهارته, the person is upon his purity, إلا أن تدل, unless a what? حجة, a proof shows على نقض طهارته, that his purity is gone. A proof has to come, حجة, something that is solid has to come. I ask you all this question, billahi alaykum. A person's Islam to be nullified, is it not greater than a wudu? Billahi alaykum as'alukum. Of course it is. A person's wudu cannot be nullified from him unless another certainty comes of what? To say that the wudu has gone. The same way is your Islam. Your Islam can only be removed from you if the matter is something which is a proof, evidence that we can't go against. The fifth principle is مسألة الحكم بغير ما أنزل الله لا تختص بأحد دون أحد. the matter of ruling by other than that which Allah set down is not specific to an individual over another individual. Meaning, ruling by other than that which Allah has set down is an issue that every single person has, it means him. So the person who is the teacher, he is the ayat of hukum, ruling by what Allah has sent down, is referring to him. The Muslim ruler who's ruling the Muslim, the ayats are referring to him. The father, the ayats are referring to him. The mother, the ayats are referring to her as much as everyone else. The son, the ayats are referring to him. Everybody is a hakim. Everybody is a judge. Ibn Taymiyyah alayhi rahmatullah, he said, وَكُلُّ مَنْ حَكَمَ بَيْنَ اثْنَيْنِ, anybody who judges between two, فَهُوَ قَاضٍ, he is a judge. سواء كان, whether that matter of your judging is what? صاحب حرب, a person of a battle, and you're the commander, you're a judge. You have to be fair. أو متولي ديوانا, or a person who's being given a position in your job. They made you a judge. They made you the manager of the branch. You're a hakim. Be just. Don't do حكم بغير ما أنزل الله. أو منتسبا للاحتساب بالأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. Or you're a person who does calling to the good and preventing the evil. You're a teacher, you're a sheikh, you're a alim, whatever. You have to rule by Allah, what Allah sent down. You're going to be questioned. Don't be a person who rules by other than that which Allah sent down. Ibn Taymiyyah said, حتى الذي يحكم بين الصبيان, even the person who judges the people, two children who come to you. A person comes up to you and says to you, two children come up to you and say to you, uncle, me and this child, who has a better handwriting? And you look at them and you say unjustly to one of the child, you have a better handwriting than the other one. حَكَمْتَ بِغَيْرِ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ, you have judged by other than that which Allah sent down. Ibn Taymiyyah saying this to you. And Ibn Taymiyyah said what? فَإِنَّ الصَّحَابَةُ, the companions, كَانُوا يَعُدُّونَهُ مِنَ الْحُكَامِ, they used to consider and they used to believe that that person is a judge. Anybody who takes those positions. Ibn Hazm alayhi rahmatullah, he said that the person is a judge even in his own actions. You're a judge in your own actions. And that is, of course, a verse from the Quran. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ أَيُمْسِكْهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. If one of them is given the glad tidings of a child, a boy or a daughter, and he's told that your wife has just given birth to a daughter, the whole world becomes tight on him. And the first thing that he thinks about is what the people are going to think and how the people are going to look at him. And he also thinks about how he's going to bury that child that he just had, his daughter. Because the Arabs didn't like the daughters. Allah then says at the end of the ayah, أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. What an evil hukum that they were doing. What was the hukum they were doing? Their actions. Their own actions was referred to as a hukum. So what you need to know is, if you say وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, that this kufr here is major kufr, then that means any person who doesn't judge by what Allah sends down, such as the alcoholic who drinks alcohol, he has not ruled by other than that. He hasn't ruled by what Allah has sent down. He has not. Drinking alcohol and khamar is not ruling by what Allah has sent down. So you're saying that وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ is kufr akbar. Good. This verse, you've got two choices. What you can do is, you can say that this verse is also referring to him and is also referring to all of those which we mentioned, Abdurrahman. So then you have to, it will necessitate that you would have to make takfir on the people who drink alcohol. You would have to, because he has not ruled by that which Allah has sent down. Pay attention to that. And when you do that, you have fallen on the path of the Khawarij. The second one is that you say, no, I don't believe that. I believe that the verse is specifically to only the rulers, only to the Qadi and the judge. I say to you here, you have gone against the Quran, who refer to your own actions as a hakim. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدٌ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Good. It goes against the ayah which I mentioned, the 59th ayah in Surah Al-Nahl. And it goes against the aqwal of the ulama, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Hazm. And also Ibn Taymiyyah said that this is how the Sahabas used to see it. And it also against the ayah, it goes against the ayah that you're using. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. The word man in the Arabic language, it means whoever. And man is min adawat al-umum. In usul al-fiqh, the mabhath of dalalat al-alfaz, the word man and man, they show generalization. It means whoever rules by other than that which Allah sends down, he is a kafir. So you're going against the ayah which you're using, which is the ayah saying it's whoever. The man is whoever. It's talking about the person. And the ma is also another word that's used for generalization, and it's referring to whatever you rule by. It doesn't matter what it is. So whoever and whatever. Let me go to the sixth principle, which is the last principle for the first chapter, is speaking in an ambiguous manner. The sixth principle is al-ijmalu sababun fi kathir min al-ishkal. Speaking in an ambiguous manner and not clarifying and detailing things is one of the ways, it's one of the ways where ignorance and misguidance occurs. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said, وَأَمَّا الْأَلْفَاظُ الْمُجْمَلَةِ, words which are ambiguous, unclear. فَالْكَلَامُ فِيهَا, to speeches regarding words which are ambiguous, by a person just doing a general negation or a general affirmation without doing what? دون الاستفصال, without what are you negating? What are you affirming? You have to explain it. You have to go detailed. When you say this mas'ala is kufr, you have to say this is kufr, and this is not kufr. Don't just say a general rule, kufr akbar, all of it. No. Go detailed. Why? يوقع في الجهل, it will throw you into ignorance, والضلال, misguidance, والفتن والخبال والقيل والقال. And because of that speech of Ibn Taymiyyah, I am now going to swiftly move on to the second chapter, which is, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to explain, the second chapter is what? At-tafsil, to explain, and not to give you ambiguous, explain, في مسألة الحكم بغير ما أنزل الله. Explain the details of ruling by other than what Allah has sent down subhanahu wa ta'ala. Explain in details the matter pertaining to ruling by other than what Allah has sent down subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ruling by other than what Allah has sent down it only can occur in 9 forms. Anybody who rules by other than what Allah has sent down, he has ruled in 9 different ways. One of these 9. More than one can be present in him. Okay? But all these are the 9 forms it can be stretched out to. The first 6 are kufr akbar, bila khilaf, without any disputes. The next 3 are going to be not kufr akbar, and they are kufr asghar. Kufr asghar. The first one of this 9. The first one of ruling by other than that which Allah has set down is al-istihlal. Istihlal means to make something halal for yourself. It means to make halal something for yourself. What does that istihlal mean? Istihlal means that a person rules by other than what Allah has sent down subhanahu wa ta'ala. He believes that ruling by other than what Allah has sent down is permissible for him, and that it's not haram. That's what he believes. This individual, Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, are unanimously in agreement that he is a kafir, or that he has come with kufr akbar. The evidence for that is the ijma' that Ibn Taymiyyah brought. Ibn Taymiyyah said, "Man fa'ala al-maharim," anyone who does the maharim, things that are haram, mustahillan laha, and he sees it halal, فهو كافر, he is a kafir. باتفاق, unanimously agreed upon. The istihlal is a matter of the heart. Istihlal is a matter of the heart. And the reality of us to know what's in a person's heart is that he tells us what's in his heart. Ibn Taymiyyah told us that the istihlal is a matter of the heart. And he said in his Kitab As-Sarim Al-Maslul, he said, istihlal is i'tiqad, to believe. Believing comes from the heart. أنها حلال له, it's to believe that it's halal for you. So he believes it. How can I know if somebody believes something? It has to come through the channel of his mouth. He has to say, I believe it. Because we judge the people by the apparent. He has to say, I believe it's halal. I can't say, well, you believe in your heart that it's halal. Pay attention. Ibn al-Qayyim said, فَإِنَّ الْمُسْتَحِلَّ لِلشَّيْءِ هُوَ, the one that does istihlal of something is the one, الَّذِي يَفْعَلُهُ, it is the one who does it, مُعْتَقِدًا عَلَيْهِ, he believes it's halal for him. So if other indications show me from outside, other indications show me from outside that he believes in his heart it's halal, I am not allowed to judge him by this. This is wrong. It goes against Aqeedah Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they don't judge a person by qara'in, because istihlal falls in the heart. Many other things might show me that he sees it to be halal, and I might think he believes it to be halal. This is not enough of an evidence. He has to tell me. It has to come from his mouth. I can only judge him by the apparent of what he says to me, not what I believe is in his heart, that he believes is halal. Usama ibn Zayd radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, may Allah be pleased with him and his father. He saw a man who was in a battle fighting and slicing the Muslims. And so what did he do? He took his sword, he went to that man in the battle, and he went to strike him. Before he could strike him, the man said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and the man, Usama, finished striking him, and the man died. The messenger said to Usama, أَقَتَلْتَهُ, did you kill him? بَعْدَمَا قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, did you kill him after he said La ilaha illallah? Pay attention. This man, what was he doing? He was with the army of the kuffar. He was killing the Muslims. Usama was about to strike him. And we all know when we give da'wah to non-believers, they take days to take Islam, they think about it, they digest the information, they come and they say, I don't agree, explain this to me and explain that. This man in the middle of the battle was straight away, for minutes killing the Muslims, he wants to take Islam straight away. From the apparent, it does not show that he said it from his heart. From the apparent. The qara'in shows that, no, he didn't say it from his heart. That's what it shows. But we're not, who are we to judge his heart? There's a possibility he could have said it from his heart. Your job is not to judge him by all of that. You have to take his words for it. He said to you, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. The same way is a ruler who rules by other than that which Allah sends down. And he says to you, brother, I know it's haram to do what I'm doing. You can't say, no, you're lying. You don't. If you did not think it was halal, you would judge by the book of Allah. You would have judged by the book of Allah. Pay attention. That is not allowed to be done. He passes it to the people as what? أَنَّهُ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, that it's from other than, and that is from, it's from Allah. أَنَّهُ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ, that it came from Allah. فَهُوَ تَبْدِيل, this is تبديل. يُوجِبُ الْكُفْرَ, it necessitates kufr. Ibn Taymiyyah also said the same. He said, الشرع المبدل, what does it mean? وَهُوَ الْكَذِبُ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, it is to lie on Allah and His Messenger. One. And after that, what did he say? This same part. He says, فَمَنْ قَالَ, anybody who says, إِنَّ هَذَا هُوَ شَرْعُ اللَّهِ, that anyone who says that this is the law of Allah, فَقَدْ كَفَرَ بِلَا نِزَعٍ, he became a kafir without any dispute. So شرع المبدل هو الكذب على الله ورسوله. And then after that, what did he say? If he says, إن هذا من شرع الله, this is from the legislation of Allah, فَقَدْ كَفَرَ بِلَا نِزَعٍ, he's a kafir without any dispute. He's a kafir without any dispute. Very good. Very good. Let's move on to the seventh one. Before I move on to the seventh one, all of those six that I mentioned are kufr akbar. Bi-ijma', with consent. There is no khilaf. Those six that I just mentioned are all kufr akbar. With consent. There is no khilaf. Very good. The next three that are going to come are not kufr akbar. They are minor kufr. What is it? One. So the seventh one is al-istibdal, is that the person changes the rule. أن يحكم بغير ما أنزل الله مجردا. It is that the person rules by other than that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends, he rules by it. That's it. Just a mere action. He takes a rule and places it there, puts it there, and he rules by that. Okay? This is kufr akbar. This is kufr asghar. This is kufr asghar. If he does not make it halal for himself, if he does not make it, if he doesn't do it by way of juhud, if he doesn't do it by way of takdeeb, if he doesn't do it by way of tafdeel, if he doesn't do it by way of musawat, if he doesn't do it by way of ascribing it to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, أن ينسب الحكم الذي جاء به لدين الله. And he doesn't ascribe it, أن ينسب الحكم الذي جاء به لدين الله. And he doesn't ascribe this rule to the religion of Allah. If he doesn't do any of those I mentioned, those six, which is istihlal and juhud and takdeeb and tafdeel and taswiyah and ascribing it to Allah's religion. If he doesn't do that and he just changes the rule of Allah, this is not kufr akbar. The mere action does not make him a kafir. What is the evidence for that? Two. The first evidence is that إجماعهم على عدم التكفير الجائر. Ahlul Sunnah unanimously agreed upon that the transgressor who transgresses in the rule of Allah by ruling by other than that which Allah sends down, the Ahlul Sunnah unanimously agreed upon that is not kufr akbar. That is a jair, an oppressor. What did they say? وَأَجْمَعَ الْعُلَمَاء, the ulama have unanimously agreed upon على أن الجور, to transgress, في الحكم, in the ruling, من الكبائر, it is from the major sins. لمن تعمد ذلك, the one who does it deliberately. عالما به, and he has knowledge of it. Okay? There's ijma' present there. Pay attention. This ijma' used the word jawr. He's unfair in the rule of Allah. He turns away from the rule of Allah. Ahlul Sunnah unanimously agreed upon it. Jawr, al-adlu an hukmillah. Jawr means that he turns away from the rule of Allah towards another rule. The rule of Allah is a rule of justice. He transgresses and oppresses. Ahlul Sunnah unanimously agreed upon. Istibdal falls under this. There is no difference between jawr in a ruling and istibdal. It's the same thing. Because every person who is jairan, who is a transgressor, a tyrant ruler, he has done istibdal of the hukum of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. But a person who has become a kafir by ruling by other than that which Allah has sent down, you can't call him a jair, you call him a kafir. So the previous six are not called jawr, they are called kufr. They become kuffar. The previous six that we mentioned, they're kuffar. What is istibdal? Jawr, ijma'. Good. The second evidence for it is that there is no dalil that anyone provided that changing the rule of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala with another rule is kufr akbar. No evidence that we find so far. So what happens? Because of that, we will say that this person's Islam, he cannot be removed from him with a doubt, with what some people have made as a doubt. Here is a matter which I have to bring to the attention of many regarding the word istibdal. Okay, we know the difference between at-tabdil and istibdal, I hope so. Istibdal means just the fact of him just ruling by other than that which Allah sends down. It's called istibdal. Whether he does it once, whether he changes the whole constitution, it doesn't matter. Tabdil on the other hand, is when he ascribes it to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala's religion. Okay, that is called at-tabdil. Istibdal just means he changes the role of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala and dismantles it. It's called istibdal. This is not kufr akbar. It's minor kufr. Some have said no, it's kufr akbar. But it's only kufr akbar when he does it completely, meaning he changes it all. Pay attention. They said if he changes it all, removes the book of Allah and puts another law there, just the fact that he put it, that action alone is kufr akbar. So i'tirad was brought by those who said that the istibdal itself, the mere act of istibdal, to change the rule of Allah, is kufr akbar. So we say to them, any one of you who do takfir with istibdal, what will be necessitated from your speeches? That the takfir of leaving the rule of Allah is also kufr akbar. Just the leaving is a kufr akbar. If you say exchanging the rule of Allah with another rule is kufr akbar, then I will ask you, what is the difference between the person who leaves the rule of Allah, and you have to know the difference. The person leaves the rule of Allah, or the person exchanges it with another rule. A father has a son, his son robs. He comes to him, he says, Dad, police has caught me, I was brought to my hand to be cut. The father says to the officers, leave my son alone, let him go home. Is this father a kafir? Some of them will say, no, he's not a kafir. He left the law, but he left the law of Allah. He will say to you, I know. Okay, what about if he writes a law for his son, and he says, if my son steals, if my son steals, he is a what? He is a kafir. If he says, if my son steals, his hand should not be chopped off, and he makes that law for his son, then they say this is kufr akbar. They say this is kufr akbar. What's the difference between the first and the second one? The first one left the rule of Allah, and the second one left the rule of Allah. Both of them, they fell off by leaving off the rule of Allah. One, he done istibdal, he changed the rule. One writ it, and the other one didn't write, he chose not to write it. And both of them are the same. To be honest, فَلَا فَرْقَ. There's no difference. And also you have to keep in mind the speech of Abdullah ibn al-Shaqiq, rahimahullah, who said, كان الصحابة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم, that the companions of the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, they never used to see an action leaving it to be kufr akbar, except the prayer. شيئا من الأعمال تركوا غير الصلاة, other than the prayer. The only actions which the Sahabas used to see, if you left it, you became a kafir, was the salah, not leaving the rule of Allah. Some may still argue and say, but the apparent verse of Allah shows it. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ shows it. That the apparent of the ayah. We'll say that taking the apparent of the ayah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ, it is the path of the Khawarij. Al-Imam al-Ajuri rahimahullah, he said, وَمِمَّا يَتَّبِعُ الْحَرُورِيَّةِ, and one of the things that the Haruriyin follow is مِنَ الْمُتَشَابِهِ, they follow the verses which are ambiguous. So you refer to it as ambiguous, something that's not clear, which is قوله تعالى, the speech of Allah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Ibn Abdul Barr also said, وَقَدْ ضَلَّ جَمَاعَةُ بِالْأَهْلِ الْبِدَعِ, a group of the group from the Ahlul Bid'ah, such as the من الخوارج والمعتزلة. What did they do? في هذا الباب, in this matter of iman and kufr, he was talking about, he said in these matters, they became misguided. فاحتجوا بهذه الآثار, and they started to use these evidences. ومثلها في تكفير المذنبين, to label the sinners as kuffar. واحتجوا من كتاب الله, and what they use from the book of Allah is بآيات, verses, لَيْسَتْ عَلَى ظَاهِرِهَا, that are not in its apparent. Such as قوله تعالى, the speech of Allah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. They took that verse at its apparent. So when do you say لَيْسَتْ عَلَى ظَاهِرِهَا, and it's not of its apparent? Qurtubi alayhi rahmatullah, he said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. يَحْتَجُّ بِظَاهِرِهِ, those who used apparent verse, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ, from its apparent, is مَنْ يُكَفِّرُ بِالذُّنُوبِ. It's those people who want to make people who do sins kuffar. وَهُمُ الْخَوَارِجِ, and they are the Khawarij. وَلَا حُجَّةَ لَهُمْ فِيهِ, and they have no evidence in this matter. Abu Hayyan al-Andalusi, he said, واحتجت الخوارج بهذه الآية على أن كل من عصى الله تعالى فهو كافر، وقالوا هي نص في كل من حكم بغير ما أنزل الله فهو كافر، وكل من أذنب فقد حكم بغير ما أنزل الله فوجب أن يكون كافرا. He said that the Khawarij are the ones who said here نص, it's a evidence, a text which is clear cut for us. في كل من حكم بغير ما أنزل الله, anyone who judges by Allah, he is فهو كافر. They said that. They said this verse is a clear-cut evidence for us. This is the qawl of the Khawarij. Muhammad Rashid Rida, he said, أما ظاهر الآية, as for the apparent verse, لم يقل به أحد, no one said, من أئمة الفقه, no one said that this verse is at its apparent. No one from the ulama of fiqh. No, the ulama of fiqh here means the ulama of understanding. No one said it. Al-mashhurina, who are famous. بل لم يقل به أحد, rather no one said it. From the people of knowledge. The Khawarij said it. You see? One also thing you have to know is, anybody who makes takfir of a person by changing the rule of Allah, then they have to remember that they would have to make takfir of a person who sins. And the reason why is because every person who sins, and before we did take that the ayah وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ is general. Because every single person who sins, he has exchanged the rule of Allah with his whims and desires. Everyone has. He did istibdal, the rule of Allah, he moved it and exchanged it with his whims and desires. Rather, Ibn Hazm is the one who said that. In his kitab al-Fisal, fi al-Milal wal-Ahwa'i wal-Nihal, min bab al-Munasabah, just to point this matter out, it's called al-Fisal, fi al-Milal wal-Ahwa'i wal-Nihal. Ibn Hazm said, فإن الله عز وجل قال, Allah تبارك وتعالى said, ومن لم يحكم بما أنزل الله فأولئك هم الكافرون. وقال تعالى, Allah also said, ومن لم يحكم بما أنزل الله فأولئك هم الظالمون. وقال تعالى, Allah also said, ومن لم يحكم بما أنزل الله فأولئك هم الفاسقون. He said, فيلزم, it will be necessitated on and forced on al-Mu'tazila. It will be forced on the Mu'tazila by these verses. It will force the Mu'tazila to what? And يصرحوا, to make takfir بكفر كل عاصٍ, every sinner, وظالم, and every transgressor, وفاسق, and every wrongdoer. لأن, because كل عامل بالمعصية, because every person who sins فلم يحكم بما أنزل الله, that person hasn't judged by what Allah has sent down. Any person who sins has not ruled by what Allah has sent down. Pay attention, that's important. So then that means everybody who does a sin, he hasn't ruled by what Allah has sent down. So he's exchanged it with something. He has to exchange it with something. So what has he exchanged it with? He's exchanged it with man-made. So he's exchanged it with his whims and desires. He's exchanged it with his whims and desires. So why wouldn't you make him a kafir? Why don't you want to refer to him as a kafir? Very good. Then the next takfir, the eighth one, inshallah ta'ala, which is al-hukm bighayri ma anzal Allah, is at-taqneen. Taqneen is what? That a person brings a man-made law from somebody else. هو أتى به من عنده. It's a qanoon, rules and regulations. He brings a man-made law, he introduces it. Protocols. This one, he is the one who made it, and he is the one who made it into place. Or he introduces a man-made law, doesn't matter. This is called taqneen. Even that those some scholars, they say taqneen only means that he's the one who invented it, he made it. And the istibdal, which is the previous one we took, is the one that the istibdal is the one he brings and exchanges it with it. The taqneen man means he is the one who introduces this rule. This is also as long as he doesn't do with istihlal, mustahillan, ولا جاحدا ولا مكذبا ولا مفضلا ولا مساويا ولا ينسب الحكم الذي جاء به لدين الله. The previous 6 that were mentioned at the beginning, if he is not doing it with any of those 6 involved, then it becomes kufr asghar. لا تخرجه من الملة. It does not take him out of the fold of Islam. What is the evidence for that? عدم وجود دليل يوجب تكفيره. Because there's no evidence that shows that he's a kafir. There is no evidence to show it. Some of the people have argued and said that this is a kafir, no doubt. Which is what? He is the one who comes and he writes a legislation. This person is a what? He is a legislator. He's doing tashri', he's legislating. And this is Allah's right. Haqqullah. It is the rights of Allah. So how dare he come and he introduces a rule and he is the one who puts it down. He is a kafir. First of all, we have to realize that that argument is not strong, has no basis. The reason is because if a person, مثلا, has a bad friend, he has a bad friend, and that bad friend of his sets protocols and laws for him to commit haram, does rules and regulations for him. By what? By beautifying it for him, by calling him to it, by saying to him, I will drive you there, you take that route. He writes for him and he sets for him sins, how he could do it. He gives him the ideas, he plans it out for him. Just that same way that the ruler does it for the people, that law. Will that person become a kafir? And remember, al-hukm bighayri ma anzalallah enters everywhere. Will that person become a kafir if he does that? He's got a friend he calls his friend to evil, beautifies it for him. The answer is no, he won't be a kafir. Then why would the ruler become a kafir? What has he done different to this? The next question is that they said that no, the taqneen is tashri', and this is the rights of Allah. Okay, what about the person who draws a picture? The person who draws a picture, is he sinner? Yes, major sin. Kabiratu min al-kabair, it's a major sin. And Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith is Qudsi, that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, Man azlam, who is more transgressive than who? Mimman dhahaba yakhluqu ka khalqi, who goes and creates like my creating. Referring to what? The person who draws a picture. In another hadith, the Prophet said, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ عَذَابًا, the people who have the most severe punishment the day of judgment are يوم القيامة الذين يضاهون بخلق الله, are those who try to copy Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala in their drawing, try to compete with Allah in creating. Pay attention. The person who draws, Allah referred to him as a creator, khaliq. And khalq is a character, sifatul lillah. It's Allah's rights. No one creates except Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So are you going to say that the person who draws is a kafir? The person who draws is a kafir. Is that what you're going to say? That argument also, Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz and Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin and Shaykh Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani, all three of them do not make takfir of taqneen. ولذلك ابن باز said فإذا سن قانونا يتضمن أنه لا حد على الزاني أو لا حد على السارق فهذا قانون باطل وإذا استحله الوالي كفر. So Ibn Baz conditioned that if he does istihlal, he becomes a kafir. Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, go to his sharit Silsila Huda wal Nur, you will find it in the tape 849. Naam. If you exactly want the minute, you can find it on the 72 minute. When it's 72 minutes into it. Pay attention. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin rahmatullah, in the ta'liq he done on fitnatu takfir, Shaykh al-Albani, he said, الحكم بغير ما أنزل الله ليس بكفر مخرج عن الملة. Ruling by other than that which Allah sent down is not what takes you out of the fold of Islam. لكنه كفر عملي, but it's a kufr of the action, meaning to say kufr asghar. Ahl Sunnah sometimes refer to as kufr asghar as kufr amali. Don't think to yourself that it means that every kufr has to be i'tiqadi. Now there are kufr which happen from the limbs, but this is a ibara that Ahl Sunnah used. So you have to understand what they mean by it. لأن الحاكم بذلك, because the ruler who rules بذلك خرج عن طريق الصحيح, he has left the path of the correct path. So because of that, he's fallen into kufr asghar. ولا يفرق في ذلك, and there is no difference between, Ibn Uthaymin say this, بين الرجل الذي, there's no difference between the person, the man, الذي يأخذ قانونا وضعيا, who takes a man-made law, من قبل غيره, from other than himself, ويحكمه في دولته, and he rules it by in his government. وبين من ينشئ قانونا, and the one who he himself writes the law. There's no difference. ويضع هذا القانون, and places that rule. إذ المهم, the important thing is هل هذا القانون يخالف القانون السماوي? The issue here right now is, does it go against the قانون of Allah تبارك وتعالى, the law of Allah? The answer, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen says, does it oppose the rule of Allah? Of course it does. The answer is yes. So Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen at the beginning said, لَيْسَ بِكُفْرٍ مُخْرِجٌ عَنِ الْمِلَّةِ. It does not take the first person out of Islam. And later I'm going to prove that this was the last view of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen alayhi rahmatullah, in which he came back from the previous view that he had. The Tashri' Am. The Tashri' Am is the ninth one, the ninth form of ruling by other than that which Allah sends down, which is called Tashri' Am. It is to do a general legislation. A general legislation. أن يحكم بغير ما أنزل الله, he rules by other than that which Allah sends down. ويجعل هذا الحكم عاما على كل من تحته. And he makes this law forced over everyone under him. It's obliged on everyone to follow it. This becomes Tashri' Am. As I said also, if the person, he does this rule, but he does not do it مستحلا ولا جاحدا ولا مكذبا ولا مفضلا ولا مساويا ولا ينسب الحكم الذي جاء به لدين الله, not the six previous ones that were mentioned which were kufr akbar, none of those six, then this action is not kufr akbar, it's kufr asghar. What is the evidence for that? عدم وجود دليل يوجب الكفر, because there is no evidence that shows that the tashri' al-am is kufr akbar. There's no evidence to show it. So anybody who does say that there is, the evidence has to come from him, his direction. It has to. Those were the 9 rules, or those were the 9 types of ruling by other than that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. Those were the 9 rules, ruling of other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. And that was the second point that I was going to go through, inshallah ta'ala. Second point, second chapter, section, or second chapter, sorry. That was the second chapter finished there. I'm going to summarize the second chapter before I move on to the third chapter, inshallah ta'ala. What do we learn from what I mentioned? What we learn is أن الحاكم بغير ما أنزل الله, that the ruler who rules by other than that which Allah sends down, لا يكفر, he does not become a kafir, كفرا أكبر, a major kafir, kufr, except what? إلا إذا صرح, unless he clearly says بالاستحلال, that he sees this to be halal, أو جحودا, or that he shows he sees it juhud, stubbornness, أو التكذيب, disbelief, أو التفضيل, he sees it virtuous over the rule of Allah, أو مساويا, or he sees it equal to the rule of Allah, أو التبديل, which is the 6th one, which is he ascribes it to the religion of Allah. As for the other 3, which is if he does taqneen, or he does istibdal, or he does tashri' am, we mentioned those 3 are kufrun asghar. They are not kufr akbar, unless he does the previous 6 which were mentioned, which is istihlal, or juhud, or takdhib, or tafdil, or al-musawat, or nasaba ma ja'a bihi li dinillah. That's the first point that we benefit as a summary. The second point that we benefit from it, anybody who makes takfir of the last 3, it is on him, he has to bring a clear-cut dalil to prove his argument. A clear-cut proof to prove his argument. That is one. That's the first segment that we all have to understand. The next point is, where did the disagreement occur regarding the last 3? The disagreement occurred because some of the people misunderstood ضبط صورة التبديل. What is the meaning by tabdil? And as I pointed before, that the tabdil means that it has to be ascribed to the religion of Allah. 2. The second thing that was disputed was the issue of al-istibdal. And we proved that وَالصَّوَابُ لَا دَلِيلَ عَلَى تَكْفِيرِهِ, that there is no evidence to make istibdal kufr akbar. The third one was what? At-taqneen. They said that if a person brings a qanoon, he sets the qanoon and he writes it down. We also prove that the correct view is that there's no evidence to make takfir of this issue. There's no kitab, no sunnah, no ijma'. And the fourth one, which was tashri' am, he makes a tashri' which is general. In this situation we said that والصواب, the strongest view is what? أنه لا دليل على التكفير بها, that there is no strong evidence to prove that this is kufr akbar. This view that I've explained and I brought to the table is what Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhi that he mentioned. Shaykh Ibn Baz, which I quoted, he also said it. Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen in his late fatwa said. This is also the fatwa of Lajnatul Da'ima برئاسة Abdul Aziz ibn Baz that he was upon. Also what the great grandson of Muhammad Abdul Wahhab said, Abdul Latif ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and also Sulaiman ibn Sahman, who were the A'immatul Da'wat al-Najdiyah. They said, if you go to Uyun al-Rasail, the second volume, page 605, you will find a quote of Abdul Rahman ibn Abdul Latif ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan, rahimahullah. If you go to Uyun al-Rasail, second volume, 603, you will find the speech of who? Sulaiman ibn Sahman, rahimahullah, who mentioned this issue. Also, the one who followed me on this, agrees with what I've mentioned, is the students of Abdullah ibn Abbas, Tawus ibn Kaysan. When it came to the ayah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, Tawus ibn Kaysan said, لَيْسَ بِكُفْرٍ يَنْقُلُ عَنِ الْمِلَّةِ, it is not the kufr that a person will leave the fold of Islam. Ata, who is the student of Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, كُفْرٌ دُونَ كُفْرٍ وَظُلْمٌ دُونَ ظُلْمٍ وَفِسْقٌ دُونَ فِسْقٍ. Both of those I mentioned, Tawus and Ata, is mentioned by Muhammad Nasr al-Marwazi in his Kitab Ta'zim Qadr al-Salah. Also, the person who agreed with me on this issue is none other than Abdullah ibn Abbas. When Abdullah ibn Abbas came to the ayah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, Abdullah ibn Abbas, as Abdul Razak ibn Hammam al-San'ani narrated a chain of narration which is authentic. No one has ever disputed its authenticity. No one. This one. There are other chains of narration which have been questioned, but I'm not going to bring it. I'm going to bring the authentic chain of narration which everyone will know how authentic it is. The chain of narration is as follows. Abdul Razak ibn Hammam al-San'ani, who is Shuyukh A'immat al-Sitta. Also Ma'mar ibn Rashid. Abdul Razak ibn Hammam al-San'ani is Imam Ahmad Sheikh. Also Ma'mar ibn Rashid, who narrated from Abdullah ibn Tawus ibn Kaysan, who narrated from Tawus ibn Kaysan. How strong and how powerful is that narration? That chain of narration, Tawus ibn Kaysan said, Abdullah ibn Abbas said, when it came to the ayah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, he said, هِيَ بِهِ كُفْرٌ, he is a kafir. Some people do not want to bring the quote of Tawus who explained what his teacher meant by this. And Tawus rahimahullah, he said, in that same chain of narration, he said, وَلَيْسَ كَمَنْ كَفَرَ بِاللَّهِ, it is not like the one who disbelieves in Allah, وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ and his angels, وَكُتُبِهِ and his messengers, books, وَرُسُلِهِ and his messengers. It's not like that. So that Tawus explains that the kufr here is not the major kufr of life, disbelieving in Allah, the angels, the books and the messengers. It's minor kufr. That's what he's trying to say. And the evidence to show you that the usage of the word hiya bihi kufrun, it comes in the Sharia sometimes and it means minor kufr. And it's the authentic chain of hadith in Sahih Muslim, where the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Ithnani fin nasi, two things in the people, huma bihim kufrun. Huma bihim kufrun. What is it? At-ta'anu fin nasab. Two things that the people come with. It is kufr. At-ta'anu fin nasab, criticizing people's lineage. وَالنِّيَاحَةُ عَلَى الْمَيِّتِ, and wailing over the dead. So you can see that the Prophet ﷺ used it. And I ask you, do you say that those two are kufr akbar? The answer is no. The second evidence to show you that hiya bi kufrun is meant by minor kufr is because the students of Abdullah ibn Abbas, Ata and Tawus, both of them said kufrun duna kufr. Tawus said it is kufrun la yanqulu sahibuhu min al-millah. And the students are وَمَذْهَبُ الصَّحَابِي, the methodology of a companion, يُعْرَفُ مِنْ مَذْهَبِ أَصْحَابِي, is recognized by the methodology of his students. If you want to know the Sahabi's ideology or belief in this issue, his students' belief of it is, or what they say is what his students, what he believed. The third thing is what? Tawus explained what his teacher meant. and he is more aware of what his teacher meant by it. وَالرَّاوِيُّ, the narrator, أَعْلَمُ بِمَرْوِيهِ مِنْ غَيْرِهِ, the narrator is more aware of what the person who is narrating from meant. Also, number 4, all the ulama who have ever quoted the speech of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, all of them have understood it to mean kufr asghar. No one has ever said that the speech of Abdullah ibn Abbas, it shows kufr akbar. This goes against the mufassirin, all of them, what they took regarding it. Some people try to say that the speeches of Abdullah ibn Abbas is weak and whatnot, but I didn't even go on that path. I just took the one that we all agree that is authentic, and I proved to you here, bi kufrun is meant by minor in all of those evidences. And Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen alayhi rahmatullah, he said, regarding the ayah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, he heard that some people weakened it. So the Shaykh alayhi rahmatullah, he said, لكن لما كان هذا لا يرضي هؤلاء المفتونين بالتكفير صاروا يقولون هذا الأثر غير مقبول ولا يصح عن ابن عباس. He said, these people who it won't please them, the quote of Ibn Abbas, when they couldn't take it, and those who are, he's referring to the ones who have been tested with doing takfir of the people. That's what he said, مفتونين بالتكفير. They say that this athar is غير مقبول, it can't be accepted, it's weak, and it's not authentically narrated from Ibn Abbas. فيقال لهم, Ibn Uthaymeen said, it will be said to these people, كيف لا يصح, how can it not be authentic from him? وقد تلقاه من هو أكبر منكم وأفضل وأعلم الحديث. How can it be not authentic? And those who are higher than you and greater than you and more nobler than you guys have authenticated this hadith. وتقول, and you say to us, لا نقبل, we won't accept it. فيكفينا, sufficient to us is أن الجهابذة, noble, high-ranked scholars of hadith, كشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية وابن القيم وغيرهما, تلقوه بالقبول ويتكلمون به وينقلونه فالأثر الصحيح. He said, enough for us is that Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim and other than them too have accepted this narration and they quoted it and they transmitted it. For verily this athar is sahih. And I'm going to, inshallah, as a side point, I'm going to bring the scholars who authenticated this hadith, inshallah ta'ala. Al-Hakim, he authenticated this hadith. Al-Imam Al-Hakim al-Naysaburi in his Mustadrak. Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi authenticated it. Ibn Kathir, Muhammad Nasr al-Marwazi, Al-Sam'ani, Al-Baghawi, Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, Al-Qurtubi, Al-Biqa'i, Al-Wahidi, Sadiq Hassan Khan, Muhammad al-Amin al-Shanqiti, Al-Allama Abu Ubaid Qasim al-Salam, Abu Hayyan, Ibn Battah, Ibn Abd al-Barr, Al-Allamat al-Khazin, Al-Allamat al-Sa'di, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, Shaykh al-Allama Muhammad Nasir al-Din al-Albani, and Shaykh Faqih al-Zaman, Al-Allama Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. All of those authenticated the narrations of Abdullah ibn Abbas where he said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ كُفْرٌ دُونَ كُفْرٍ وَظُلْمٌ دُونَ ظُلْمٍ وَفِسْقٌ دُونَ فِسْقٍ. And the narration which says, لَا يَخْرُجُ عَنِ الْمِلَّةِ لَا يُخْرِجُهُ عَنِ الْمِلَّةِ. So all of those quote, the scholars have strengthened it. Sufficient for us is what they have said. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to mention one point and I'm going to move on to the fourth chapter, inshallah. But before, there's one thing I need to step over and talk about, which is an accusation that has been put, which so many people say, da'wa al-irja', you're murji'a. That title keeps coming to anybody who says, hukm ghayr ma anzal Allah is not kufr except those 6 that have been mentioned. They say that this is irja'. One thing you need to know is, al-ikhtilafu fi manat al-takfir, to dispute with a person whether this action is kufr in and within itself or if it's not, is not an issue of irja' or not. And that shows you that a person doesn't even know what irja' is. Rather, irja' are those who take the action out of iman. And I, walillahi alhamdu wal minna, are from those who see that the iman is qawl and amal. I see iman is qawl, speech, and I see that is action. I also see that iman increases and it decreases. And I also see that the iman exception enters it, meaning a person says, أَنَا مُؤْمِنٌ insha'Allah. And I'm going to give you a quote of the scholars speaking about this. And Imam al-Barbahari rahimahullah, he said, مَنْ قَالَ الْإِيمَانُ قَوْلٌ وَعَمَلٌ يَزِيدُ وَيَنْقُصُ. Anyone who says iman increases and decreases, and iman is speech and actions, he said, فَقَدْ خَرَجَ مِنَ الْإِرْجَاءِ كُلِّهِ أَوَّلُهُ وَآخِرَهُ. Anybody who says iman is speech and actions, and iman increases and decreases, that person has left irja' from the beginning to the end. Also, the person who says that insha'Allah, ana mu'minun insha'Allah, has also left irja''s foundations. Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi said, as Imam al-Ajurri mentioned in his Kitab al-Shari'ah, إذا ترك الاستثناء, if a person leaves off istithna, which is to say, أنا مؤمن إن شاء الله, he doesn't see it. If he leaves it off, فهو أصل الإرجاء. That person is upon the foundation of irja. The third point is, من قال, anybody who says to you, بأن الكفر, that disbelief can happen from what? بالقول, with speech, with action, and with heart, qalb, all three of them, by themselves, individually, kufr can happen for them. Individually, a person can become a kafir because of his action. A person can become a kafir because of a speech he said. He can become a kafir because of an action he said. And he can become a kafir because of a belief he has. All of those by themselves. And walillah alhamdu wal minna, I'm from those who see it to be strong that anybody who abandons the salah is kafir. He leaves the fold of Islam. That is my stance for all I've known this matter when I researched it. Walillah alhamdu wal minna. The fourth section, which is the last one I'm going to inshallah conclude with, as I finished the three first chapters, which is the last chapter inshallah ta'ala, is I'm going to bring 5 evidences. And I'm going to answer 5 evidences that were brought from our opponents, who said that ruling by other than Allah's rule is kufr akbar. These 10 is what they have used. And I'm going to answer it inshallah ta'ala. The first one is وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. The ayah 44, Surah Al-Ma'idah. That ayah they said is kufr akbar, and it's clear cut for us. The answer is in 3 ways. First of all, that ayah, أهل السنة والجماعة have an ijma' ليست على ظاهرها, that the verse is not apparent. And I've quoted Ajurri, Abu al-Hayyan, and Ibn Taymiyyah, and other than them. Tafsir Ibn Abbas alayhi rahmatullah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, he explained that the kufr here means minor kufr. Also, the consensus of the tabi'een regarding this matter. Ibn Taymiyyah has said, إِذَا أَجْمَعُوا عَلَى شَيْءٍ. He's talking about the tafsir of the tabi'een. Ibn Taymiyyah said, إِذَا أَجْمَعُوا عَلَى شَيْءٍ, if they unanimously agree upon a tafsir, the tabi'een, فَلَا يُرْتَابُ, no, it is not doubted, فِي كَوْنِهِ حُجَّة, that it's a proof. He also said in another place in his Majmu' al-Fatawa, مَنْ عَدَلَ عَنْ مَذَاهِبِ الصَّحَابَةِ, anybody who turns away from the methodology of the Sahabas, وَالتَّابِعِينَ, and the tabi'een, which are the students of the Sahaba, وَتَفْسِيرِهِمْ, and their explanation of the Qur'an, إِلَى مَا يُخَالِفُ ذَلِكَ, and he turns to what opposes that, كَانَ مُخْطِئًا فِي ذَلِكَ, the person is wrong in this matter. بَلْ rather, مُبْتَدِعًا, he's a misguided individual. وَإِنْ كَانَ مُجْتَهِدًا, even if he's a person, وَإِنْ كَانَ مُجْتَهِدًا, if he's a person of ijtihad, مَغْفُورًا لَهُ خَطَأُهُ. وَإِنْ كَانَ مُجْتَهِدًا, even if he's a mujtahid, مَغْفُورًا لَهُ خَطَأُهُ, which his mistakes are forgiven for him. So Ibn Taymiyyah is very strong on that issue. Some people with ignorance in them said that we have a Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah who said وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ means kufr akbar. And so the question was asked, where did you get that from? Where did he say that? He said it in his kitab Sharh al-Umdah, when he was talking about qism al-salah, in the salah section. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that the kufr al-mu'arraf bil-alif wal-lam, that has the alif and lam in it. Ibn Taymiyyah said it doesn't come except as kufr akbar. So Ibn Taymiyyah says al-kufr that comes bil-alif wal-lam, al-kufr that comes as alif and lam is kufr akbar. Wherever you find it, don't doubt it. He said wal-kufr al-mu'arraf ينصرف إلى الكفر المعروف وهو المخرج عن الملة. The kufr, al-kufr, which has alif and lam in it and becomes a definite in the Arabic language, he said it goes directly to the kufr akbar. Good. We'll say to these people, well, can you not see the difference of what Ibn Taymiyyah said and what we're talking about? Ibn Taymiyyah is talking about al-kufr. And anyone who knows the Arabic language will know al-kufr is a masdar, a verbal noun. Al-kufr. And al-kafir is ismu fa'il. It's an ismu fa'il, and there's a difference between the two. What's the difference between the two? Masdar indicates the action alone. The masdar, which is al-kafir, only indicates the action. whereas the ismu fa'il indicates the action and the one who done the action. And the ruling changes. So read and understand what you're saying and learn the language. If you don't, then you will fall into a lot of destruction. Go to Fitnatul Takfir, page 25. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen says that the من سوء الفهم قول من نصب لشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية أنه قال إذا أطلق الكفر فإنما يراد به كفر أكبر. Ibn Uthaymeen talks about it. Go to that. The second evidence that the opponents have used is the ayah فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم حرجا مما قضيت ويسلموا تسليما. They said that this is meant by the negation of iman here. فلا وربك لا يؤمنون. They will not be believers. The iman that is negated from them here, they said it is the asl of the iman, the original essence of iman, meaning they're not Muslims anymore, kuffar. We'll say to them, no, then the iman that's negated here is meant by kamaluhul wajib, the complete iman, kamaluhul wajib. And it's like the hadith of the Messenger narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, لا يؤمن أحدكم, that one of you is not a believer, حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه, until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. It takes the same negation here. Here the iman was negated, لا يؤمن. Will you say that the iman that's negated here, which is a person who doesn't love for his brother, doesn't love for himself, is a kafir? Is that what you're going to say? Are you also going to say the one that the Prophet said, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yu'min, Wallahi la yu'min? What is it? الذي لا يأمن جاره بوائقه. The Prophet said, Wallahi doesn't believe, Wallahi doesn't believe, Wallahi doesn't believe. The person whose neighbor doesn't find safety from him. What is the Prophet negating from him? The complete iman. Complete iman, I mean, is kamaluhul wajib, not kamaluhul mustahab. I mean kamaluhul wajib. And learn the difference. The evidence that I'm going to use to show you that it's meant by kamaluhul wajib and not aslul iman is that which the scholars have said and that which the sabab nuzul of the ayah showed. The ayah, the coming down of the verse shows that. The ayah came down on a Ansari Badri, a man who participated in the battle of Badr. محفوظ من الوقوع في الكفر. And we all know that Ahlul Badr are protected from falling into major sins. Kufr akbar. This Badri man, him and Zubayr ibn Awam had an argument, and when they had a khusuma, they went to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they told the issue to the Messenger, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered Zubayr to withhold the water, and when he finishes it with his garden, let the water go, and so that the man can use it. The man, when he heard that, he said, أن كان ابن عمتك أن كان ابن عمك أن كان ابن عمتك. You judge that for him because he's your cousin, he's the son of your uncle. That's why you gave him it, because you're a relative and you're related with him. So he wasn't happy with the pleasement, but the Prophet did not label him as a kafir. And the ayah came down on him, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. The iman that was negated from him was kamalul wajib, not the asl of the iman. Also Ibn Taymiyyah showed that the iman that was negated is kamaluhul wajib. Go to the 7th volume, page 37. Go read it there, inshaAllah ta'ala. The third evidence that they used was Surah An-Nisa, ayah 60. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ يَزْعُمُونَ أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَتَحَاكَمُوا إِلَى الطَّاغُوتِ وَقَدْ أُمِرُوا أَن يَكْفُرُوا بِهِ وَيُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَن يُضِلَّهُمْ ضَلَالًا بَعِيدًا. The ayah says that, أَلَمْ تَرَ, do you not see, إِلَى الَّذِينَ, the ones who يَزْعُمُونَ, who claim أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا, they believe, بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ, that which has been sent on you, وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ, and that which has been sent before you. But again, what do you see? يُرِيدُونَ, they want, أَن يَتَحَاكَمُوا إِلَى الطَّاغُوتِ, they want to go and make the طاغوت their rule, their judgment. That's what they want to do. First of all, this ayah has an ihtimal. It can mean two of one meanings. One, it can mean that they became iman, they became munafiqeen, and the imanum sara maz'uman, that their iman was just a mere claim, and that they became hypocrites after they were believers. That's one meaning it can take, and that is the meaning that pleases our opponents. They are happy with the idea of thinking that that is what it means. There's also another meaning that it can have, is that the ayah came down on the people who were already munafiqun, who already had nifqun, munafiqun, they weren't mu'minun, and they claimed that they had iman, and that the iman never entered their heart in the first place, and they were lying about their iman. So that it can take one of those two meanings. Here what we will say is, awalan, if a matter has a dispute, whether it's kafir, kufr akbar, or if a matter is we're disputing whether it's kufr akbar or not, which is what we're debating here right now, then as I said at the beginning of our qawa'id, and the principle that we had is that we're not going to run to the kufr, which is ihtimal, with a matter which is the kufr which is ihtimal. We're not going to leave the yaqeen of Islam that is present for the person. Also, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari explained the ayah even better. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, when he came to the ayah, يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَتَحَاكَمُوا, he said, فِي خُصُومَتِهِمْ إِلَى الطَّاغُوتِ يَعْنِي إِلَى مَنْ يُعَظِّمُونَهُ وَيَصْدُرُونَ عَنْ قَوْلِ وَيَرْضَوْنَ بِحُكْمِهِ مِنْ دُونِ حُكْمِ اللَّهِ. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari added parts that were very powerful, which is that they honor these people, the Taghut. وَيَصْدُرُونَ عَنْ قَوْلِهِ, they are ones who transmit his speech. وَيَرْضَوْنَ, and they are pleased with it. بِحُكْمِهِ, his rule. مِن دُونِ حُكْمِ اللَّهِ, besides the rule of Allah. And the matter of rida, whether a person is pleased with a matter, can only be known what's in their hearts. And it requires for you to find out that they find it better than the rule of Allah. That's what he told you. They are pleased with it over the rule of Allah. And I think we spoke about this when we were talking about tafdhil. They gave it virtue. And that's what he mentions it to mean. Also, the fourth evidence that they bring is Surah Al-An'am ayah 121. وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ لَيُوحُونَ إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِهِمْ لِيُجَادِلُوكُمْ وَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ إِنَّكُمْ لَمُشْرِكُونَ. That shaitan sends revelation to his allies so they can argue with you. وَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ, if you obey them, إِنَّكُمْ لَمُشْرِكُونَ, you are mushriks. If you obey them, you're a mushrik. If you obey them, you're a mushrik. First of all, this ayah, anybody who takes it as its apparent, will come out with the conclusion that anybody who obeys shaitan is a what? Anybody who obeys the shaitan is a kafir, mushrik, straight away. And we have Muslims who obey the shaitan. In some matters in which he calls them to, they obey him. Do they become mushrik because of that? وَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ, if you obey the disbelievers who are mushrikun, or the shaitan himself, anybody who obeys a kafir, in anything he's a mushrik straight away. Ajib. And also anybody who obeys them in what? And anybody who obeys them in what? Who obeys shaitan in what? Who obeys the shaitan in what he calls him to. He's a mushrik straight away. Lakin our ulama walillah alhamdu wal minna have explained this to us. And we're going to go to Abdul Latif ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan, who is the great grandson of Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. He mentioned in his Kitab Uyuni al-Rasail, the first volume, page 251. He says, وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ لَيُوحُونَ إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِهِمْ لِيُجَادِلُوكُمْ وَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ إِنَّكُمْ لَمُشْرِكُونَ. He said, كيف حكم على من أطاع أولياء الشيطان في تحليل ما حرم الله أنه مشرك. If you underline where he says, how is it? كيف حكم على من أطاع. Look how it judged on the person who obeys the awliya shaitan, the allies of shaitan, في تحليل, in the halal of ما حرم الله, in the halal that which Allah made haram. Istihlal, he obeys them in it, agrees with them. Number 5 is the ayah where Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala says, أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ. Ayah 21, Surah Al-Shura. They said that this is an evidence to show it's kufr akbar. We say to them, this ayah, you've misunderstood it. It's a person who legislated it and ascribed it to the Sharia of Allah. Because Allah said, أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ. Underline the word مِّنَ الدِّينِ. It falls under tabdeel. Ascribed it to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The 6th evidence that was used was what? وَلَا يُشْرِكُ فِي حُكْمِهِ أَحَدًا. And do not associate partners with Allah in the وَلَا يُشْرِكُ فِي حُكْمِ أَحَدًا. Surah Al-Kahf, ayah 26. And they do not associate partners in Allah in His judgment. وَلَا يُشْرِكُ فِي حُكْمِ أَحَدًا. Anybody who takes this ayah, which is don't associate partners with Allah in the judge, then that means any person who comes to you and you're unjust as a Muslim ruler who every day rules by the book of Allah, every single second you rule by the book of Allah in your life to the people around you, and you are righteous, and one day you choose not to rule by the book of Allah, then you're a mushrik. That's what the ayah would mean if we take it as its apparent. وَلَا يُشْرِكُ فِي حُكْمِهِ أَحَدًا will mean that you are a mushrik just by the mere fact that you ruled by other than the book of Allah. And because we've taken that everybody is a hakim in his own actions, and we've studied that before, we all agree, وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدُ وَالْمِنَّةِ, then that would mean the one who drinks the alcohol is a mushrik and he should be a kafir as well. Because he did not uniquely judge Allah in his actions. He associated partners with Allah in his actions. What partner did he associate Allah in his actions? He associated his whims and desires. So he done shirk. And I mentioned before that everybody is a hakim in his actions. So I ask those who say it, do you guys believe that every person rules by other than that which Allah sends down is kufr akbar? If you say yes, then wallahi, no one has said this except the Khawarij. No one has ever said this. Ila qiyam as-sa'a, you will never find it except the Khawarij. Ahlul Sunnati break it down. There are things that they disagreed regarding which one is not and which one is, but no alim in ulama sunnah said all of the forms of ruling by other than that which Allah sent down is kufr akbar. So if you say that this ayah shows that he's a mushrik and he leaves the religion of Islam, you would have to make anybody who rules by other than that which Allah sends down, whatever way or form or shape it is. Even that man who rules by the book of Allah every day, who one day did not choose to rule by it, that he's a kafir, you have to state that. Also, the seventh evidence that was used was what? إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. The law and the rule is only for Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. It's only for Allah. That ayah has no any evidence to show that it's kufr akbar. Of course the law is for Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And it's His subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's His. That Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, the rule is uniquely His. And He is the one who places the rule of Allah. The one who rules other than Allah's law, he's a sinner, and he goes against that verse in the sense where he's disobeyed Allah in this matter. He is a sinner. The ayah does not show that it's kufr or akbar. I don't see the word istidlal in this ayah for a person to use it. But if a person says it is clear in there, we will say to you, then no problem. We take it as it's apparent. Then what we would say is, إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. Anyone who does not rule by what Allah said that is kafir, kufr akbar, straight away, then that would mean the person who drinks alcohol would have to be a kafir. Also, the ruler who rules by the law of Allah every time and every second, this time he chose not to rule by the law of Allah, he's also a kafir. The eighth one is what? اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. Surah At-Tawbah, ayah 31. This is what some group have used to say that the ayah, it means that they took their rabbis and their monks, lords besides Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Surah At-Tawbah 31. That one, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah explained what it was meant by it. Ibn Taymiyyah, go to his Majmu' al-Fatawa, 7th volume, the 70th page. Ibn Taymiyyah says, وَهَؤُلَاءِ الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا أَحْبَارَهُمْ وَرُهْبَانَهُمْ أَرْبَابًا مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَهَؤُلَاءِ الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا أَحْبَارَهُمْ وَرُهْبَانَهُمْ أَرْبَابًا حيث أطاعوهم في تحليل ما حرم الله تعالى وتحريم ما أحله الله يكونون على وجهين. Ibn Taymiyyah said they become two ways. Those who have obeyed their monks and their rabbis or their leaders in halal haram, halal and haram. Two ways. أن يعلموا أنهم بدلوا دين الله فيتبعهم على التبديل. That they know that this person has changed the rule of Allah and they follow them in this. فيعتقدون, and they believe تحليل ما حرم الله. They believe it's halal, that which Allah has made haram. They believe that it's halal, that which Allah made haram, and haram, what Allah made halal. They believe it in their hearts. اتباعا لرؤسائهم, and they follow their leaders in this. مع علمهم, knowing that أنهم خالفوا دين الرسل, that they went against the religion of the prophets. فهذا كفر. That's كفر أكبر. That is كفر أكبر. Then he goes, والثاني أن يكون اعتقادهم وإيمانهم بالتحريم. But he said the second one is that he believes it's haram, what the ruler is doing. And he believes that the rule of Allah is right. And the legislation of Islam is what he believes. But he follows him in it. He says, لكنهم أطاعوهم, but they obey him في معصية الله كما يفعل هؤلاء المعاصي الذي يعتقد أنهم معاصٍ فهؤلاء لهم حكم أمثالهم من أهل الذنوب. They take the ruling of the sinners. You go to Ibn Taymiyyah then. The ninth evidence that they used was وَمَا اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَحُكْمُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. There is no law, there's no matter in which we dispute one another in. The judge is with Allah. Go back to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. ليس في الآية دلالة على التكفير. The ayah has no indication to show that it's kufr akbar. Just bring back the rule to Allah's religion, which is haqq, which everyone has to do, and it's fardu ayn, no doubt. But the ayah does not show it's kufr akbar. The 10th one that was used, which is the last one, is أفحكم الجاهلية يبغون ومن أحسن من الله حكما لقوم يوقنون, which is the 50th verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah. This, we've already explained what it meant. أفحكم الجاهلية يبغون. 2 points I have to mention. Allah says, do you want the Jahiliyyah laws? أفحكم الجاهلية يبغون. Some people thought that the Jahiliyyah here means kufr. The Jahiliyyah, brothers and sisters, you have to understand, it comes in the Sharia. Sometimes it means it doesn't mean kufr akbar. It doesn't mean the Jahiliyyah which takes you out of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ used it to Abi Dhar radiyallahu ta'ala an. What did he say? إِنَّكُمْ رُؤٍ. You're an individual. فِيكَ جَاهِلِيَّة. Jahiliyyah is present in you. Bukhari and Muslim narrated it. So pay attention. Though it doesn't mean Jahiliyyah straight away is kufr akbar. Also go to the speech of Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Salam when he spoke about the ayah. Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Salam, Kitab al-Iman, page 90. He talked about the ayah, فَحُكْمَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ. And he mentions that the person is not a kafir by doing it. He mentions that. That is my discussion regarding this issue. I hope, inshaAllah ta'ala, I have explained it very well. I have brought the matter to you in a very summarized, abridged form. I ask Allah tabarak wa ta'ala to forgive me for anything in which I have said that is incorrect. And Allah tabarak wa ta'ala to put it on my scale of reward the day of judgment, anything which I have said right. Anything which you heard that was wrong or incorrect is from me and shaitan, and Allah and His Messenger are free from it. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أستغفرك وأتوب إليه.